The Positive Pause is a motivational-minded podcast covering topics women want to know about as they journey to and through menopause, focusing on subjects that impact women's health and healthy aging, including what it means to age healthfully. The Positive Pause features experts and influencers from a variety of industries and specialties. The information and opinions expressed on the Positive Pause are not intended to replace the services of trained professionals or to provide specific medical advice. To see the National Menopause Foundation's full medical disclaimer, please visit nationalmenopausefoundation.org.
Welcome to the Positive Pause. I'm Claire Gill, founder of the National Menopause Foundation. Joining me for this episode is Laura Okafor, the founder and CEO of Peri, the leading global perimenopause platform, redefining perimenopause care holistically. The platform has over 60,000 members. Prior to launching Peri, Laura worked in consumer packaged goods, including over 12 years in global innovation and Procter Gamble. Laura's passion lies in creating spaces for the underserved. She was inspired by her mother's own emotional struggles during perimenopause and facing it herself as a millennial. She was shocked by the lack of support available to women worldwide. This motivated her to establish Peri, a safe space for genuine connections and accessible, personalized support focused on emotional well-being during the perimenopause transition. Thanks so much for being with me today, Laura.
Hi, Claire. So good to see you and hear you.
Yeah, so we've known each other for several years now, and I'm delighted that the National Menopause Foundation and Peri have partnered to launch the first ever National Perimenopause Awareness Month in September. Received so much positive feedback about this, and I know you have too. But let's start by talking about why you think perimenopause needed its own awareness month.
Yeah, Claire, so good to be here. I remember us meeting the first time and at one point saying, there is Menopause Awareness Month in October. And how can we expand this conversation and just make, this perimenopause space as well accessible to others? And we both agreed that this topic and this transition deserves its own awareness month and its own, kind of focus. And it's funny that the menopause conversation really, evolved over the last years, and there's more and more focus, but still there is so much confusion when it comes to what is perimenopause? When can it start? Am I too young when I'm 38 experiencing these symptoms? So this whole conversation needs more focus, needs more attention, but especially perimenopause, because that is really the rocky road for many. That's the era which has the most myths and misunderstandings. So I think we both agreed that this really deserves its own month and its own dedication in spreading that awareness and spreading more knowledge about it.
I totally agree. And I think that what we realize is many people know about menopause, but they don't realize that it's a transition and that there are multiple parts to it. And perimenopause, I think, is what many women really think of when they think about menopause. They just don't know that it's actually a different stage, right? And as you said, it can happen and start much younger and continue for many, many years. So let's now talk a little bit about some of the activities happening this month and how can people get access to them?
Yeah. Just like you and me got excited about this month and the conversation, and we were just saying, let's do this, let's declare this month, and let's declare September 22nd as World Perimenopause Day. I think you and me both had this excitement around this. It brought so much joy to just bring other thought leaders into the conversation as well. When approaching medical professionals or thought leaders or even celebrities in that space, when you and me started reaching out to them, everybody was on board and was like, yes, this is a much needed month. And they were all so happy to contribute. And that really led us to having this jam-packed month with events, online events. We have almost, around 7 to 10 online events every week. They're hosted on our Peri platform. They're later being taped in our Peri platform, and you can access them as well on our podcast. And I encourage everybody to visit perimenopauseawareness.com, where you see all the events happening, all the contributors to the month, like all these different voices, and their personal peri story, because that is important. It's not only the educational piece, which is very, very important, but it's also important to hear from others, to have these peer-to-peer lived experience exchanges to understand, okay, I'm not the only one going through this. And just reading as well from a doctor who went through her own perimenopause journey, or from a celebrity or from a TV anchor. That's what you can all find on our joint website, where we have all these contributors, their stories, and then you can sign up to the events and also watch the replays.
It really is. It's so important. And I think that's why there was that enthusiasm that we found immediately, as you said, from people, because people want to share that connection. And it is that feeling of, oh my gosh, I thought this was just happening to me. But when you hear from so many people, and like you said, even the clinicians talking about it and celebrities talking about it, no, this is a unified experience for women. If we live long enough and we're healthy enough, we are going to go through this menopausal transition. And so knowing what to expect and how our peers are managing it is really important. And just for our listeners, we'll have notes with this podcast that will direct you to the website and give you more information about Peri. And all of that is available to you wherever you listen to our podcast. So that's something to look forward to and be able to explore after this podcast. Laura, while we both agree that the commemoration month is really a great way to raise awareness and it's so important, there's so much more that needs to be done. So can you talk a little bit about how Peri is helping women to understand perimenopause and how to support them during the menopausal transition?
Absolutely. So we started Peri around 4 years ago. And as you were saying that we're right now a platform of around 60,000 women on this platform. And we decided, what is the best way of helping women in their perimenopause transition? And just like other pivotal moments in our lives, perimenopause requires community and requires that lived experience and peer-to-peer interaction. So this has been, from day one, the heart and soul of Peri is community. It's an app, it's a safe space, it's a free app where women can connect with others throughout this journey. What we also know is that vetted content and education is important, especially now as the menopause conversation is more and more evolving. You see more people talking about it. It gets more cluttered and confusing. And what we're really trying to do with Peri is to invite the thought leaders, invite the science, and really break that down to, make it understandable and make it actionable for everybody. There's so much confusion on treatment options, hormone therapy or not. We don't want to be biased in anything which we are proposing, but we're really inviting these experts to speak to it. So you can imagine Peri as like this one-stop shop for everything perimenopause, for the community aspect of it, the awareness aspect of it, and the education piece of it. Claire, you and me, we've been talking about, it's so hard to find the right provider. And we're trying to crack the same with Peri, to just understand from others, how can I find my right provider who has been good for you? Because there is such a unmet need for many women to find a provider who truly understands their perimenopause symptoms and journey. And it just helps to hear from others who might have had a positive experience with somebody. So next to the community, to the knowledge, we're also, building more and more kind of a directory to understand which providers have been helping others.
That's so helpful, because the same thing when we all look to those referrals from our friends for, hey, do you know a great pediatrician, or where do you get your hair done? Like all of those things, really, right? And
yes.
Being able to capture where are women having good experiences getting care during midlife. And it's so important to sort of have that references from other women. So I love that that's something that people can access through Peri. And like you said, it's serving a really, really important unmet need. I know, too, though, we also talk about, right now that, as you said, there's so much conversation around menopause. And it's so important because there's been decades and decades of no conversation about it. But unfortunately, then there's misinformation too, right? And that sometimes those things get promoted. So what are you hearing? What do you think is the biggest misconception about perimenopause?
what we hear from our community, Claire, mainly from the misconception which women experience when they speak to their healthcare provider, is really the education on what is perimenopause and what are the symptoms and what are the ages. And this is really something which is happening in the doctor office because doctors often don't get the right training and the right kind of length of training. So women are often dismissed when it comes to their age or their symptoms, that they really don't get the right care they need because they often still have their periods. And then doctors are like, this cannot be perimenopause. So the biggest misconception we are hearing in our community is really age and symptoms, that there's just not the right understanding. But then when it comes to really this kind of maze of misinformation, it's really around treatment options. I think that hormone therapy, of course, is the biggest one. The continued fear on hormone therapy that we hear a lot in our community, am I a hormone therapy candidate? Can I use it when I'm already in perimenopause? Now, we don't have direct recommendations because it's really an individual case-by-case thing, but we do invite the leading voices who have the latest research on hormone therapy, who make this clear kind of education piece on when are you the right candidate for it and when not. Do you have to be afraid of it or not? And I think there still needs to be so much information and education happening in that space, because that also allows then other more maybe less effective solutions to come in. Like the other part is on supplements. Do supplements help? Yes or no? Some do. We just, had a big content production with Dr. Mary Jane Minkin, who's like the OG of perimenopause and menopause, and she has so much knowledge. And she says there are some herbal products or some solutions you can use, especially as a breast cancer survivor. But that, I think, is where women are still being so much misled and kind of preyed on in their insecure moments is, how can I really help my symptoms? And just that noise within that space, that is something we definitely want to overcome.
Yeah. I hope too, as we talk about like the importance of peer support and peer education, learning from each other. One of the things that I hear sometimes too is this pushback from women for the choices that we make about how we manage our health in so much of it, right? And that goes across the lifespan for women. And I really think we need to talk about it and address it, because it starts really young and then it starts carrying out through our lives. Like, we've been sort of brought up on the fact like there's some kind of prize for suffering or not complaining or not talking about it. And I really think we need to get away from that. I mean, you'll have women going back and forth of, like, I did a natural childbirth or I took an epidural, and it's not a competition. It's a personal decision. Whatever works for you, works for you. And that's great. And I want you to have access to whatever it is. And the same thing happens when we get to the perimenopause and menopausal stage. Women need to know that there are safe and effective treatments, a bunch of them, besides hormone replacement therapy. There's now non-hormone replacement, abnormal hormonal therapy options. There's, as you said, there's some types of supplementation or even lifestyle changes that can support symptom management. And we need women to know about all of them, right? What you choose might be very different than what I choose for how to manage our symptoms, but women aren't made aware of all of those options. And so I really love that there's these platforms like yours and the National Menopause Foundation where women can learn about these options, talk about them with their peers. But we need to remind ourselves that, again, it's really a personal choice. So,
Absolutely.
Even if you're not experiencing hot flashes and you're not having a hard time with the menopausal journey, trust me when I tell you, there are some of your sisters who are really struggling. And so we need to be empathetic and respectful of all of that and be really, really open to hearing about all of those options so every woman can make the choice that's right for her. And so I just want us to have more of that dialogue. And I think that's platforms like Peri or where that can happen, right? Where women can share their experience, but also learn about all the other options that they might not have even considered.
I agree. And I want to just give one interesting observation is that there is a general distrust with the medical field, especially when it comes to perimenopause. And I'm not saying that it's good, but what we observe as well in our community is that sometimes women even come from their doctor and then ask others for their experience with the treatment option the doctor has been proposing, because they trust the experience of peers more than what the doctor has been saying. Again, I'm not saying that's good, but there is power in just having that lived experience by others.
Right.
You need to then marry that with the medical field, of course, but there is power in some of our life stages to really talk to others about their experience. I always compare it with infertility or just becoming a new parent or fertility. There is just some conversations need community, and they need this lived experience from others to really understand what has helped you and what hasn't, without the judgment you have just been mentioning, which is so true.
That's right. Right. Without the judgment. And like you said, I mean, let's be honest. Most of the medical field are still made up of men. So we're seeking treatment for a very, very focused women specific transition and treatment from providers who absolutely, and again, we talk about distrust. I've learned so much in my years in women's health that the majority, everyone who's working with us, their providers are trying to do their very best to give us guidance and to lead us where we should go. But as you said, the men have never taken these treatments. They don't know that lived experience, as you said. So combining that good scientific information from your clinician, which is what we really try to do, from a clinician who understands and who has been trained in it, right? And there aren't enough clinicians really who know how to treat and manage menopausal symptoms, solely because it wasn't taught to them in medical schools and residencies. And so we're working on that as well. But then you take that good advice and then, like you said, then bring it to your community and hear what other people have to say, women who have lived the experience or tried the treatment, and you just get a great perspective to be able to make your own decision then. And I think that's, like you said earlier, it's very personal. There's no right or wrong way. Whatever works for you, works for you. And that's what's so important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if we're wildly successful with our lovely National Perimenopause Awareness Month, and people really are learning and getting the information they need, what are the top 3 things you hope every woman will know and understand about perimenopause?
You said before, you know what to expect. Sometimes I call peri what to expect when you're not expecting. So I'm really, envisioning for peri and the Perimenopause Awareness Month to be the what to expect when you're not expecting for everybody 35 plus. And what I mean by that is, I hope with all what we're doing, Claire, we are not only raising awareness for the ones who are already in it, but for the ones who are about to get in it. So I just turned 40. I'm a millennial, and they're all my friends. They are now starting to show some signs of perimenopause, and they have no idea what's going on. So I would love to get this preventive angle to it, that every 35 plus year old is having a conversation either with a healthcare provider or a friend or a doctor, just to understand what is perimenopause. What can I expect? What is coming my way in the next 5 to 7 years? So that's number one, really this preventive thing. The second one is to have the tools early before you're entering it and while you're in it. What are my options? What are my treatment options? What should I ask my doctor? How can I prepare myself for it? To really, understand, like you're saying, on an individual basis, what can be my toolbox? Because there's still so much misunderstanding of what the toolbox can be. And I think that everybody just would benefit so much from it, similar to other stages in our life where we're just more prepared and we know what can I do next. A bit of, regaining control. So that would be my second one. And then the third one is really the empathy piece. I hope that, that there is just in general more empathy for people in perimenopause among each other, the employer with employees who are in perimenopause, partners, family members, children. I think this topic deserves so much more empathy. One of the number one claim in our community is, I don't feel like myself. I'm kind of losing my old self. So what you were saying before, this feeling you're the only one who's going through it, that feeling of isolation, that feeling of of losing yourself. I just hope that with a month like this, we can just instill more empathy within society on what people are going through within their lives and kind of shining a light on that this is happening. It's not a disease, but it is happening. So, be educated and just show some empathy for yourself and others.
Those are all such great points. And it really is about that empathy for what other people are going through and giving yourself grace too. I think when we talk about parenting and those of us who are going through or have children who have gone through the puberty stage, we all just breathe deep, like, oh my gosh, it's a really difficult time and those changes are happening. And what we don't tell women is that all happens again as you go through that perimenopausal puberty.
Yeah.
So we need to be mindful of that and give ourselves that kind of grace too. Like, wow, there's a lot happening, right? And I'm going to feel these different things. And as you said, I might have some challenges along the way. But if we know about it ahead of time, as you said, then we can better prepare for it. And if those around us know about it, then they're better able to handle it. So I was laughing earlier. I'm actually at a Menopause Society conference now, and it's learning from all the top scientists and researchers and clinicians about the latest information in science. And we've been hearing from a lot of different people about all of these different things that are happening and what we need to know. And I shared that my husband and daughter would be the perfect people to talk about what my triggers are for things that happen in the perimenopause state, right? What causes mommy to go off the rails? And they're better able at that than really I am to notice, wow, it happens to me when.
So true.
So it really is impactful across families and communities. And so we need to be more mindful of that.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to share?
Claire, I just want to reiterate, talk about it, share your story. If you're listening to this, I think this is our call to everybody. Share your story, be open about it. The more we share, the more we talk about it, the less we make it a stigma or something, people tremble into and don't know what's happening. This conversation requires more attention, requires more openness. I know it's not always easy to be open about it, but we see it in our community. The more you share, the less also it becomes your own personal problem, but more kind of a joint problem with others. So let's keep this conversation. You're right. It's just the beginning, but let's go out there. Let's not be ashamed of it. And let's really kind of shout it from the roofs and have this conversation. And I thank you and the National Menopause Foundation as well to, enable this together with Peri to really start highlighting this critical phase.
Well, I'm really thrilled to be able to talk with you today, Laura, and I really appreciate all you're doing. And I'm just so inspired, especially, again, as you mentioned, at the millennial age, at the younger age of this journey. It's really amazing the work you're doing to help prepare the next generation for what's to come. And that we talk a lot, too, about the fact that, yes, we spend an awful lot of time talking about the symptoms of menopause and how to manage them. But there's so much empowerment and positivity that comes with this stage of life, too. And so to kind of get younger women prepared and educated, they'll have more opportunity to be excited about this stage of life versus stumbling through it and wondering what's happening to them. So thank you for everything you and the Peri team are doing to make that possible for women. As I mentioned, we'll include additional information and resources about Peri and about National Perimenopause Awareness Month with the notes of this episode so our listeners can follow up and learn more. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I have. And if so, please subscribe to the Positive Pause podcast so you never miss an episode. But more importantly, please share this information about the podcast with your family and friends so we can continue to spread the word and reach more women. Thanks again to my guest, Laura Okafor, founder and CEO of Peri. And thank you for listening. We hope you'll tune in to another episode of The Positive Pause.